Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for July 31st to August 6th of 2016. And on July 31st, we have the sun. You can see it denoted right here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Leo. It's also in the 33rd hexagram, and on the outside of the wheel, we have the chop mark for the 33rd hexagram, numbered from bottom to top. The 33rd hexagram goes yin, yin, yang, 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 yang. And then the 33rd hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 33rd gate of privacy, retreat, active withdrawal, and the transformation of a weak position into strength, located in the throat center in a collective abstract energy path in the sensing circuit called the Channel of the Prodigal, a design of a witness that connects to its harmonic, the 13th gate of the listener, the fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person, that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we've got the following activated gates on July 31st. The sun is in the 33rd gate with the earth in the 19th gate. The north node is in the 64th gate with the south node in the 63rd gate. Mercury is in the 59th gate. Venus is in the 4th gate. And Mars is in the 14th gate. Jupiter is in the 47th gate. Saturn is retrograde in the 9th gate. Uranus is newly retrograde in the 42nd gate. Neptune is retrograde in the 63rd gate, which it shares with the south node. And Pluto is retrograde in the 54th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And we begin the week with two channel definitions due to the transit field. We've got the north node in the 64 and Jupiter in the 47, and that brings us the channel of abstraction, a design of mental activity mixed with clarity until August 3rd. The energy of this channel is about creating something new out of something old. This is about an abstract thought being brought into the collective consciousness through the arts, philosophy, history, and culture. It's wonderful energy for telling stories about our experiences that inspire others, but brings confusion when used to try to resolve our own issues. And then with Venus in the 4th gate and Neptune and the south node in the 63rd, we have the channel of logic until August 1st, which is about mental ease mixed with doubt. None of us are designed to make any decisions based on our mind, and this channel brings mental gifts that should be used in the service of others rather than trying to understand our own lives. When your strategy and authority presents you as someone who needs your clarity and inspiration, this transit can support the process. This is scientific thinking through being skeptical and questioning whether logic or patterns are valid. It brings mental pressure to people without a defined head center, which in turn can bring doubt when trying to analyze their own lives. This definition is future-oriented through looking at mental patterns and projecting them into what lies ahead. This can bring worry, as answers revealed by this process will still need to be tested and proved to determine if they have practical application. The best use of this definition is for research purposes and testing a hypothesis. Then you can bring recognizing that the results need to be invited before they are shared. With both of these definitions, the defined ajna center can influence people to believe that they are mentally certain even when they're not, and the defined head center can bring the pressure to think about things that don't matter. July 31st begins with the sun exalted in the first line of the 33rd hexagram, which is described as avoidance, exalted the wisdom in a weak position to recognize that survival demands complete withdrawal, retreating when one realizes that they are in a weak position. But then later on the 31st, the sun then moves into the second line of the 33rd hexagram at 4:33 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is 8:33 UT. The sun in the 33-2 is described as surrender, exalted the recognition that surrender to superior forces can be an opportunity to expand one's strengths and eventually triumph, embracing powerful forces in order to lay the foundation for future success. Detrimented, unlike the reasoned and calculating surrender of the exaltation, the deeper and personal surrender, the feeling that one's original position was delusional, and the impressionability to make might right, a public embrace of powerful forces and a private resentment of their power. August 1st, the sun then moves into the third line of the 33rd hexagram at 4:04 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is 8:04 UT. The sun in the 33-3 is spirit, the attitude that turns retreat into victory. Exalted, the responsibility and principled retreat based on preservation, but with the determination to persevere. Privacy as a path to success. Detriment, a lack of responsibility in retreat. The bridge burner, a drive for privacy that will cut off its relationships often abruptly. And then also on the 1st, Venus moves from the 4th hexagram and gate and into the 29. And in human design, Venus is about values, morality, natural law in which we deal with the other, and the consequences of the world around us. And Venus is in the 29th gate of saying yes, the abysmal, the deep within the deep. Persistence despite difficulties has inevitable rewards. And Venus is in the first line of the 29, which is the draftee, the ability to adapt to struggle when necessary, but not as a permanent state. Exalted, the innate nature to apply energy in times of war and peace, the power to persevere when necessary, but not generally. Detrimented, a deep impressionability whose mark from times of struggle may make a return to normal conditions extremely difficult. Hesitation in making commitments based on past experience. And in the program, Venus is about control through maintaining the status quo in a way in which we operate with each other. We experience transiting planets through the Maya, and we're not here to avoid the Maya, but to embrace it as yourself through following your strategy and authority. And then on the 2nd, the sun then moves into the 4th line of the 33rd hexagram at 3:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is 7:34 UT. The sun in the 33rd hexagram, 4th line, is described as dignity, a lack of turmoil in retreat. Exalted, the underlying faith in resurrection that turns retreat into opportunity for renewal and regeneration. The healthy retreat for regeneration. Detrimented, without the guiding light of resurrection, the inevitable delusion that leads to degeneration. Forced to retreat and unable to see its regenerative qualities. And then also on the 2nd, Mars moves from the 14th gate in hexagram to the 34. And so Mars is in the gate of power, the power of the great. The power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. And Mars is in the first line of the 34, which is the bully, the indiscriminate use of power. Exalted, the less negative the resort to power as a manifestation of frustration. The energy to display power as a response to frustration. Detrimented, the comeuppance, that is inevitable destiny of the bully, the ever-present risk of retaliation to powerful displays. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. And in the program, Mars is about expression through mutation. This plays out in the mundane plane as change. These are changes that take hold in the homogenized world as fads or trends. This is an illusion because the population is ready for the same changes at the same time because of transiting Mars. On the 3rd, the Sun then moves into the 5th line of the 33rd hexagram at 3:04 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 7:04 UT. The Sun in the 33.5 is described as timing, exalted, and important timing. As important as timing itself is the ability to keep one's secrets. Keep secret one's intentions until the appropriate moment. The ability to keep one's intentions secret, detrimenting the tendency to want others to participate in the selection of the timing, which can lead to confusion. Without a sense of timing, letting others in on the secret prematurely with the resulting confusion. And then also on the 3rd, Mercury moves from the 59th gate in the hexagram to the 40. And Jupiter moves from the 47 which means we no longer have this definition. And Jupiter moves into the 6th gate in hexagram. All right, so we've got Mercury. In mythology, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. So this is about communication, or as Rob put it, the expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. And Mercury is in the 40th gate of aloneness, deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And Mercury is in the first line of the 40, which is recuperation, exalted, the ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's labor, the ego strength in being alone, detrimented, the ego uncomfortable with being alone. And in the program, Mercury is about expression through communication. It influences the homogenized population to communicate about the themes of the gate and line of the that transiting Mercury inhabits. Its primary impact is psychological. It impacts the not self-mind. It distorts the way we look at things in a way that leads to action. This conditions people to think and communicate about the same things. And in the 40th gate, I expect to hear people talk about having enough to eat or not, or feeling alone in a crowd. And then we've got Jupiter, as I said before, moving from the 47 to the 6. Jupiter is in human design is generalized law, and Jupiter is in the 6th gate of friction, conflict, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. And Jupiter is in the first line of the 6th hexagram, which is a retreat, the realization that wasting one's resources against overwhelming odds is not courage, but folly, exalted the power of regeneration that can embrace retreat as a phase and not a failure. The emotional stability to accept conflict, detrimented the inferiority complex where retreat is experienced as a personal weakness. emotional instability in times of conflict. And in the program, Jupiter is about expression through bringing out the general rules of the program. And we're all being conditioned to follow the same rules, to abide by those rules, to drive you to action. But follow your strategy and authority and not the rules of the program. And then on the 4th, the Sun then moves into the 6th line of the 33rd hexagram at 2:33 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which is 6:33 UT. The Sun is exalted in the 6th line of the 33rd hexagram, which is disassociation, the ability to let go, exalted, the will to concentrate on revitalization and not be handicapped by persistent recriminations, the ability to let go in retreat and enjoy privacy. And then also on the 4th, retrograde Neptune backs into the 37 from the 63, leaving the south node behind in the 63. And so that brings us a defined solar plexus and a defined ego center from the transit. Neptune brings the veil, and it doesn't let us see what things are all about. And Neptune can trap you if you try to get behind the veil. And this is where we learn surrender. Operating correctly by following your strategy and authority is surrender. And in the 37, Neptune is bringing the veil to the gate of friendship, the family, the manifestation macro and microcosmically of the organic nature of communities. And Neptune backs into the 6th line of the 37th hexagram, which is purpose. The energy to maintain the family is enhanced by recognizing its values, exalted, the gift of not only recognizing the inner meaning of the family, but an appreciation for its values. The possibility of extending friendships through the appreciation of its value. Detriment of the need for diversity that may ignore achievements of the family in favor of withdrawal. The need for diversity that despite appreciation will prefer casual friendships. And Neptune is a teaching planet in the program that teaches us through misinformation. And we're constantly receiving misinformation, lies. And of course, lies always travel much faster than the truth. Lies are spread by governments, organizations, religions as a way of control. And with Neptune in the 37 and Mercury in the 40, we have the channel of community until the 7th. This definition brings energy where people will wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It will be a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance becomes important in all aspects of life. People explore how they fit into their community, and then on a more mystical level, how they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. This impacts people to think that they need to be supportive of those beings around them, and that they get pulled into things related to the community. And then with the defined ego center, with people without a defined heart center, may feel that they have something to prove or want to make improvements or make promises and commitments that are not correct for them. And then the defined solar plexus, for those who do not have an emotional definition, this channel can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps lead to acting confrontational. On the 5th, the Sun then moves from the 33rd gate in the hexagram to the 7. And with that, we have the Earth moving from the 19 to the 13. And so we have the Earth is in the 13th hexagram, and this is the gate of the listener, the fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an order framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. And this shift happens at 2:03 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 6:03 UT, with the sun in the 7th gate of the role of the self, the army, the point of convergence by design, the need for leadership to guide and order society. And the sun is in the first line of the 7th hexagram, which is described as the authoritarian, the iron hand, both enlightened and despotic, exalted, basic values and rules imposed on a child, the capacity of the self to guide with authority, detrimenting the delusioned intellect that believes only it knows best, the capacity of the self to insist that its authority is best. And as we move from the 33rd to the 7th gate in hexagram, we're entering the gate of leading behavior. The army is a collective logic gate in the G center, and this is the first gate of the quarter of duality, of purpose being fulfilled through relationships and bonding. And it's a G in the G center, so it's about behavior that is to be shared with the collective. It looks at patterns to project into the future, and its harmonic is the 31st gate of unexpected direction in the channel of the alpha, which leads us to the future, to be influential. Its polarity gate, the 13th gate, openness to secrets, the listener. This is grounded in listening to the other in order to lead. So this is listening. So the question is this listening to better serve those it wishes to lead, or to have control over those it wishes to lead? What's the motivation in listening? To understand who it can serve, or to understand who could serve it? And this brings us to the third variation of the cross of the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is all about direction. So with the sun in the 7, we have direction that comes from influencing the other. And then also on the 5th, Venus moves from the 29 and into the 59. We'll put the ego center back up here, which then brings us another channel definition. Okay, and again, we talked about Venus being about values and morality and things like that. And Venus is now in the 59th gate of sexuality, dispersion, the ability to break down barriers and achieve union. And Venus is in the first line of the 59th hexagram, which is the preemptive strike, exalted, the authority and vitality that in understanding purpose and direction can recognize and eliminate barriers before they become impregnable, the power of fertility to impregnate. Detrimented in this position, the ability and intelligence to recognize, but the deep indecisiveness about how and when to act. The potential of fertility limited by uncertainty. And with Jupiter in the 6th and Venus in the 59, we have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction until the 10th. This definition brings the energy where people find it easier to be intimate with almost anyone, which can happen quickly, but may also be misunderstood. This channel is of pure fertile power, as in making babies, but it's also birthing creative projects and processes. And I expect this time period to be where people may consciously or unconsciously break down barriers to intimacy and new endeavors. Using your strategy and authority will be the only way to determine if an intimate encounter is correct for you or not. And with the defined sacral center, This could influence non-generators to feel busy and have endurance to work. They also might think that they know when enough is enough, which could lead to the premature or abrupt end to something that really needs more time. And then the defined solar plexus, as we talked about before, can influence people who do not have emotional definition to feel that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps lead to acting confrontational. And then on the 6th, the sun then moves into the second line of the 7th hexagram at 1:32 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 5:32 UT. The sun in the 7-2 is described as the Democrat, the ability to lead by serving the will of the majority, exalted the application of universally accepted systems when connected through the alpha channel to the 31st gate, the potential for widespread and revolutionary effect on society. The capacity of the self to lead when chosen. Detrimented elitism and elitism and denegation by the Democrats of democracy. The capacity of the self once chosen to feel superior to those who chose them. So anyway, thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for August 7th, 2016, should be available on the 6th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. And you can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, and YouTube, as there's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose, and invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And I am providing readings, so please contact me. If you've been thinking about getting a reading, I'd love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And again, contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com is the way to find out how you can make a donation. And as I've said before, we've been pretty short on donations and readings lately, so it really would be great if you are so inclined to get in contact with me so that we can continue to bring all these offerings of the neutrino forecast, or the care and feeding of a New World Age report, as well as daily updates on Facebook. So anyway, as always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries, their synthesis and application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best to everybody, and look forward to connecting with you in the future.